Hey guys, it's Lotus and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to continue on with our read-along of Urha. So let's get right into it. Chapter 16. This venerable one is stunned. Warning, corpse orgy this chapter and next. Ooh. Okay, so the next two chapters are going to be really interesting. Okay. Let me just start the music. Okay. Moran really couldn't be blamed for being so beast-like, trapped in a tight space with someone you'd gone to bed with countless times, regardless of whether it was heartfelt or feigned, out of revenge or fondness, smelling their familiar scent. Anyone else's thoughts would waver too, in a situation like this. Sure, Moran. Besides, Moran was a reprobate to start with. Shinmei was his moonlight. He didn't have the heart to touch him, couldn't risk ruining him. But he had no qualms about wrecking Chuaning. Toward Chuaning, he could vent all of his immoralities, bestial desires, and bone-deep savagery without restraint. Grind this person into dust, pin him down, tear him apart, run him through, subject him to everything that he would never even think of doing to Shinmei. In the past life, every time he'd seen Chuaning with his head thrown back, neck bared, and the jut at his throat moving, he felt like he might lose himself and turn into a bloodthirsty beast, consumed by the desire to rip open his throat, guzzle his blood, and crush his bones. He didn't care for Chuaning, and so he held nothing back. Even his body developed a habit from all the profaning. Just the smell of Chuaning's scent would light a fire in his abdomen and make his heart itch, make him want to tie this person to the bed and F him. Moran's frenzied heartbeats could be heard in the silence of the coffin. He knew that Chuaning's face was somewhere close, because he could feel his breaths. If he were to lunge forward with a bite now, Chuaning wouldn't be able to get away. But never mind. Moran shuffled backwards away from Chuaning, not without much difficulty because the coffin really was cramped. Sorry about that, Shizun. Moran laughed awkwardly. Didn't expect the coffin to shake. As he was speaking, the coffin tilted again. Moran rolled into Chuaning's arms once again. Chuaning, ... Moran scuffled backwards again, and the coffin lurched again. This repeated over and over. Did I get cursed or what? Moran scurried back once more. The golden boy and jade girl were probably going up a slope. It was too slippery inside the coffin, and Moran rolled helplessly back into Chuaning again before long. Shizun. Moran bit his lip, putting on a pitiful air. This guy was born with endearing looks. He could hide his wolf tail and pull a convincing puppy dog act if he put his mind to it. Chuaning said nothing. Moran really did not want to get rolled around anymore, so he simply gave up on fighting it altogether. I'm really not doing it on purpose. Chuaning, ... Moran continued in a small voice. The wounds on my back hurt from hitting the wall. In the darkness, Chuaning seemed to sigh softly. The gongs and drums outside were too loud, and Moran couldn't be sure if he heard right. But in the next moment, the smell of high-tong flowers grew stronger as Chuaning placed his hand behind Moran's back to block off the gap so that Moran wouldn't bump into it again. Oh, Shizun! It wasn't quite a hug. Chuaning held his arm at a distance and made sure not to make any contact with Moran's body, other than his clothes draping on Moran, but this position was still a little intimate. Be careful, don't hit it again. His voice was deep, like porcelain submerged in a creek, steady and dignified. It would have been a striking voice to listen to, if one listened without a shroud of hatred. No one spoke after that. Moran was still a growing teenager at this moment, not as tall as he would be as an adult. Right now, in Chuaning's arms, his forehead only reached Chuaning's chin. This kind of feeling was very familiar, yet also very unfamiliar. The familiar part was the person lying beside him. The unfamiliar part was the position they were in. In the previous lifetime, not so long ago, it had always been him lying in Shisheng Peak's Wushan Palace, a lonesome Taxianjun with no one left to turn to, in a darkness so endless that he could hardly breathe, clutching Chuaning tightly in his arms. He was already taller than Chuaning then, and stronger than his Shizun. His arms were like clamps, like shackles, latching onto the remaining bit of warmth in his arms, as if holding on to the very last ember of fire in this world. He lowered his head to kiss Chuanning's inky black hair, then leaned in close, insatiable, and burrowed his face into the crook of Chuanning's neck, ruthlessly biting, gnawing. I hate you, Chuanning. I really hate you so much. His voice was a little hoarse, but you're all I have left. Moran was none too gently jolted out of his memories by a series of crashes and bumps. The sounds of gongs and drums stopped abruptly, and a deathly silence settled over everything. Shizun! Chuanning reached out and pressed a finger to his lips, cautioning in a low voice, Don't talk, we're here. Sure enough, there were no more footsteps outside, only silence. Chuanning's fingertip lit up with a faint golden light. A quick slash on the coffin wall and a narrow gap was cut open, just enough for them to peek outside. They had indeed been brought to the outskirts of Butterfly Town. The front of the temple was already densely cluttered with coffins, and the heavy scent of 100 butterfly fragrance in the air grew heavier still, drifting through the opening into the coffin. Moran suddenly realized that something was off. Shizun, does it seem like this scent, and the one in the illusory realm too, aren't quite the same as the scent in Chen Gongzi's coffin? How so? Moran had a keen sense of smell. At the Northern Mountain before, when the coffin first split open, the scent that drifted out then was pleasant smelling and didn't cause me any discomfort. That one was almost certainly the 100 butterfly fragrance, but ever since we entered the illusory realm, I kept feeling like the smell, although similar, was somewhat different, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. But now, I think I know what it is. Chuanning turned to look at him. You dislike this smell? Moran was still pressed against the opening, peering outside. I've hated the smell of incense ever since I was born. The scent here and in the illusory realm aren't 100 butterfly fragrance at all, but the scent of the special incense that the people of Butterfly Town burn for the ghost mistress of ceremonies. Look over there. Chuanning followed his gaze and saw 3 arm-thick incense sticks in the incense burner in front of the temple, their scent diffusing leisurely into the airflow. The people of Butterfly Town made all kinds of scented products using flowers, and even their incense was locally produced. Since everything was made from the flowers grown around town, the resulting scents were quite similar to people who were unfamiliar with the art. Chuanning pondered. Could it be that the scent in Chen Gongzi's coffin actually was nothing to do with the one in the illusion? Before he could finish mulling over this new detail, his thoughts were interrupted by a piercing red light from within the temple. They both looked in that direction to see the light shining resplendent, illuminating the whole area. A row of red lotus lamps, used for making wishes, sat on a stand by the side of the temple. One by one, they all lit up. The ghost children escorting the coffins all knelt at once, chanting, Mistress of Ceremonies descending, pray guide these lonely souls to escape suffering and find mates, joined in burial, partnered in afterlife. The statue of the ghost mistress of ceremonies inside the temple emitted a holy golden light amidst the thundering chant. Then its eyelids lowered, the corners of its lips moved slowly, and it leapt gracefully from the air. Graceful movement, poised bearing. Unfortunately, the body, made of clay, was much too heavy, and the young maiden landed with a thud, smashing a huge crater into the ground. Moran. Chuanning. ... The ghost mistress seemed to be aware of it as well. It stared at the crater for quite a while before stepping out with slow, deliberate steps, rearranging its clothing. Its appearance was that of a maiden draped in rich reds, face painted with makeup and a strand of cypress in its hair. Looking quite festive, in the darkness of night, it turned its neck one way, then the other, and came to a stop in front of the 100 coffins. The breeze was suffused with the stench of corpse rot. Its mood seemed to improve, and it slowly spread out its arms, letting out a guh sound of laughter. All who believe in me and worship me shall be granted a partner in marriage, fulfilling that which they were denied in life. The delicate voice drifted in the night, and the ghosts and monsters all began to prostrate in gratitude. Mistress of Ceremonies bless! Mistress of Ceremonies, pray bestow the marriage! Such pleas came wave after wave. The ghost mistress seemed delighted as it weaved slowly between the rows of coffins, dragging its long, scarlet-painted nails along them, the shrill sound ear-piercing. Moran wondered, Shizun, I remember you mentioning before that monsters, deities, ghosts, gods, demons, and humans each occupied their own realms. Why is this deity hanging out with the ghosts down here instead of living up in the 9 heavens upstairs? Because it is in charge of ghost marriages and is sustained by the worship of ghosts. Chuaning responded, the ghosts provided with immense merits, else it would not have cultivated into a deity in a mere few hundred years. With such an advantageous arrangement, it is naturally glad to keep the company of these underworld friends. The ghost mistress circled around the cluster of coffins and returned to the front, and the delicate voice rang out once again. Each coffin to be opened shall be bestowed in marriage, starting from the left. Following its command, the first coffin on the left side slowly opened, a pair of golden boy and jade girl bowing respectfully by its side. The corpses inside climbed out unsteadily, their faces looking even more deathly pale against the vibrant red of their wedding garments. The couple made their way before the ghost mistress and knelt. The ghost mistress put its hands between them and spoke. As the mistress of ceremonies, I hereby confer thee with a posthumous marriage. Henceforth you are husband and wife, male and female joyous in the joining. Moran rolled his eyes and muttered, Don't wax poetic if you don't know how to. These wedding vows sound obscene. Chuaning commented coldly, You have quite the indecent imagination. Moran shut up. But before long, the ghost mistress promptly demonstrated that, in fact, the indecent one here was not Moran, but this deity in charge of ghost marriages. It was as if the pair of newlywed corpses had consumed aphrodisiacs. They were clearly already dead. Yet they tore at each other's clothing, kissing and hugging in a frenzied tangle, right then and there, shamelessly out in the open in front of everyone. Chuaning, ... Moran, ... As the mistress of ceremonies, I hereby grant thee the joys of the natural order. Yin and yang may mate, life or death no matter. The ghost mistress's shrieking grew increasingly shrill and haughty. The corpse's movements also grew increasingly exaggerated. The male corpse divested himself of clothing and was ridiculously vigorous, no different from a living person. Moran was totally stunned. You can't just effing do that? Oh, that was the end of chapter 16. Okay. So Moran and Shizun are trapped inside the coffin together, and because they're being carried, Moran keeps rolling into Shizun's embrace. And Moran has a little bit of a flashback moment to his first life when he was still Taxianjun, and how he used to hug and cuddle with Chuaning, although against his Shizun's against his will. But yeah, and now they finally made it to the mistress of ceremonies, and she has started, I guess, authorizing each ghost couple's wedding. What is the term? Anyway, she's making them perform these weird ritualistic acts for her pleasure, which is really sadistic. And Moran's like, oh my gosh, I don't think you can do that. You're desecrating the dead. That's really disrespectful. Anyway, let's just keep going into chapter 17. Chapter 17. This venerable one, Shizun, got injured. This venerable one really what? Really what? Okay. What was this ghost mistress even doing, being a mistress of ceremonies? Change your career and sell aphrodisiacs instead. Other people's aphrodisiacs may maybe at best make a wilted live person show off some male prowess, but these gods and deities are truly something else. A slight wave of the hand, and even a dead person can get it up. Truly miraculous. Just as he was getting really into the show, Chuaning suddenly reached out and covered Moran's ears. Moran, eh? Chuaning's expression was frozen over. Don't look at such obscenity. But why are you covering my ears instead of my eyes? Chuaning said expressionlessly, Don't look or listen. You can close your eyes yourself. Moran, Shizun, you're really... Take a look at your own blushing face. Even your ears are red. The one who should be closing their eyes here is clearly you. Moran couldn't help his amusement. Chuaning was a person made of ice and snow, who'd never even seen a single erotic painting. To have to witness a coupling at such close quarters now, he just might choke to death. The dead couple almost seemed to come alive as they screwed. Even their stiff throats that shouldn't have been able to produce any noise at all somehow started making lifelike moaning and panting sounds. Chuaning turned away from the sight, too disgusted to continue looking. Moran's amusement only grew. With a mischievous grin and full teasing intention, he reached out to turn Chuaning's face back. Chuaning flinched back immediately as it stung. "What are you doing?" "Nothing whatsoever." Moran's voice was honey-sweet with a hint of mockery as he looked at him. "How old are you already? Still red-faced at this stuff." "Oh wait, it's more like green and red-faced at the same time. Pretty hilarious, actually." "Shizun, didn't you teach us to always make sure of the opponent's capabilities before engaging? You have to at least look and see the ghost mistress's capabilities." "What's there to see? I'm not looking." Moran sighed. "How is your face this thin?" Chuaning shot back. "Filthy debauchery, harmful to the eyes." "Guess I'll have to look then," Moran said as he lay there cheekily, peering outside and providing a running commentary of "ah, wow, awesome, ayo," and so on. Chuaning was so furious he was about to explode and bellowed in a low voice, "Look if you want, don't talk." Moran played innocent. "I thought you'd want to know." Chuaning finally couldn't take it anymore. Gripping Moran by the neck, he hissed through gritted teeth, "If you make one more sound, I will throw you out there to feed the zombies." Moran had his fun. With Chuaning, you really couldn't push him too far unless you wanted the full service from Tianwen, and so Moran showed some restraint and obediently lay there watching without a sound. As the ghost couple's pleasure peaked, the male corpse let out a low roar and spasmed on top of the female corpse. A wisp of green smoke suddenly rose from their bodies, and the ghost mistress opened its mouth, greedily sucking it in until every last tendril of smoke was consumed. It wiped the corner of its mouth with satisfaction, eyes shining. That would be the merit from the ghost marriage couples that increased its cultivation. "Ha ha, ha ha." Having had a taste, the ghost mistress was beaming all the more. When it spoke again, its faint drifting voice had become much clearer. It shouted, bellowed, sharp voice sounding as if it could rip through the endless night. Get up! All of you single men and unwed women, I grant you the blessings of intimacy. You shall provide me worship in return. Up, all of you!" Moran's heart thumped. Shit. What was it planning to do? The simultaneous shaking of the hundreds of coffins around them confirmed Moran's worst fears. The ghost mistress was going to call on the couples in all of the coffins to screw so that it could consume all the merits at once. This was no joking matter. Moran pulled at Chuaning. "Shizun! What is it this time?" "Hurry! We have to get out of there! Shumei is trapped with that Chen woman!" Moran was beside himself with panic. "We have to hurry and save him!" Chuaning glanced outside. Who would have thought the ghost mistress would have such an appetite, skipping individual pairings to eat it all at once? The coffins around them shook more and more violently as the ghost marriage couples inside were compelled to do the deed. Chuaning gagged at the thought, color draining from his face even more. Just then, the beaming ghost mistress seemed to feel something. Its head twisted abruptly. A pair of pure black, pupilless eyes passed over all the rest to stare directly at Moran and Chuaning's coffin. It might not be smart, but it could feel the absence of the familiar venereal energy from that coffin. There was no worship. They were alive! Its back arched abruptly and it charged, shrieking, with its clothing billowing behind it, and a pair of blood-red and razor-sharp claws pierced directly through the wood and into the coffin. The attack was too sudden. Moran had no time to dodge or defend, and besides, there was hardly any room for movement inside the coffin to start with. Just as 5 new holes were about to be added to his head from the bony claws, he was suddenly shifted lower. Chuaning had swiftly gathered him into his arms, covering him with his own body. The ghost mistress's 5 claws sunk viciously into Chuaning's shoulder. Shizun! Deep to the bone! Chuaning let out a muted groan, but endured it without crying out. His uninjured hand glowed with a silencing spell as he pressed a finger to Moran's lips, blocking off the sound that he was about to make. The ghost mistress's claws dug into Chuaning's flesh, scratching and tearing. It had clay for a head and could only tell the living from the dead by sound. The situation being like this, Chuaning really didn't make a single noise as blood poured from his shoulder. Moran couldn't see his injury from where he was pressed against his chest, but he could clearly feel Chuaning trembling. Alive or dead? There was no way a living person would still not make a sound at this. The ghost mistress couldn't make sense of things, and her claws in Chuaning's shoulder brutally continued digging, tearing. Oh no, poor Shizun! Chuaning trembled from the pain, shuddering, robes drenched in cold sweat, but still he did not falter, biting his lip as he protected the disciple in his arms, as if he had really become a corpse, blocking the opening in the coffin like forged metal. The ghost mistress finally seemed satisfied that the people inside couldn't possibly be alive. It abruptly pulled out its claws, and blood splattered, accompanied by the sticky sound of fingers sliding against flesh and bone, making one's hair stand on end. All the silence drained out of Chuaning's tense body at once. All the strength drained out of Chuaning's tense body at once. He let go of Moran, panting quietly. The smell of blood inside the coffin was suffocating. Moran lifted his head. By the dim light streaming through the holes, he could see Chuaning's lowered eyelashes, and beneath them, unshed tears in those silent, stubborn eyes. Those phoenix eyes were blurred with pain, but even more of it was fierce and headstrong, layered in wetness. Moran wanted to talk, but Chuaning shook his head and maintained the silencing spell on his lips. A while passed before he let out a slow breath and wrote on the back of Moran's hand with a trembling fingertip. The barrier has been breached. Do not speak. Outside, the ghost mistress tilted its head, unable to understand why the people inside were definitely not alive, yet refused to obey its commands, not sensing any worship from them. Chuaning glimpsed at it through the crack. A golden light enveloped his uninjured hand as a willow vine appeared, firelight coursing through it. He narrowed his eyes, Tianwen in hand, and in the next moment burst out of the coffin. The coffin split apart and Chuaning flew up like lightning, Tianwen lashing out with perfect accuracy to wrap around the ghost mistress's neck as it let out an ear-piercing screech. Who are you? How dare you? Chuaning's answer was one word: scram. Crimson wedding robes bellowed like waves of clouds. He had endured everything to make this one hit count, and Tianwen wrung with savage brutality, directly snapping the ghost mistress's neck. A dense red mist mixed with strange perfumed scent welled out from the severed neck. Chuaning drew back rapidly to avoid it, calling out an order: Moran, 1,000 strikes. Moran was waiting at the ready. Hearing the command, he channeled spiritual energy into the hidden blade in his sleeve and directed the strike at the ghost mistress's body that was groping around for its head. The body of clay cracked open, revealing within it the ghost mistress's translucent true body, radiating red light. Chuaning raised Tianwen again and ripped the ghost mistress's celestial spirit right out. A scream came from within the headless body. How dare you! How dare you! Get up! Get up! Kill them! Kill them! Blood-red eyes suddenly lit up on the featureless faces of the golden boys and jade girls, hundreds of them shrieking as they charged toward Moran and Chuaning. The coffins on the ground also shattered one after another, the corpses inside standing and rushing toward the two like a tide. Moran's gaze darted rapidly between the crowd, looking for Shimei. Chuaning said harshly, "What are you doing? Making eyes at zombies. Hurry and fend them off." In the chaos of the battle with the ghost mistress, they had ended up standing on a coffin, with the slow-moving corpses gathered all around them. Moran lit up a handful of exorcism talismans and tossed them out, explosions following, but there were just too many of them, one defeated wave rapidly replaced by the next. Moran was losing his mind. Why are there so many dead people in Butterfly Town? Just how many ghost marriage couples are there? Aggravated, Chuaning said, "Look at this ghost mistress's cultivation. Of course there wouldn't be this many young people dying of natural causes. 8 or 9 out of 10 were probably bewitched by it to commit suicide. Attack over here." Moran flung another talisman in the direction Chuaning indicated, and white bone and rotten flesh flew in the resultant explosion. How is this ghost mistress not dead from that? Normal weapons cannot hurt it. Then what about Tianwen? Chuaning was incensed. Incensed. Do you not see that Tianwen is binding it right now? This thing is extremely fast. If I release the bind, it'll probably have escaped before the next lash. More and more corpses gathered. Moran kept an eye out for Shimei in the crowd as he purged them for fear of accidentally injuring him. A golden boy threw itself at him and bit him savagely on the leg. He cursed under his breath and flung a talisman on its face before kicking it into the crowd of corpses where it exploded with a loud bang. Chuaning said, Do you see Shimei and Mistress Chen yet? Moran searched frantically before finally spotting 2 swaying figures in the distance. He exclaimed, I see them! Get the hell over there and pull them back, as far away as you can. Got it, Moran answered, then paused. What are you going to do? Chuaning said, exasperated, I can't lift my other arm to summon another weapon, so I have to use Tianwen. I'm going to destroy this entire area as soon as I release the Ghost Mistress, so get lost if you don't want to die. Okay, and that's the end of chapter 17. So, to recap the last chapter, the Ghost Mistress decided to have a full-on corpse orgy and realized that her spell wasn't working on Moran and Shizun because they were actually alive. So she decided to test out her theory and ended up plunging her sharp nails into the coffin and ended up stabbing Chuaning's poor shoulder. And then, Shizun jumped out and finally engaged in battle with her and is trying to bind her with Tianwen. But because one of his shoulders is injured, he can't summon another weapon. So he has to do everything by himself. He sent Moran to go save Shimei and Mistress Chen while he holds off all the corpses and the Ghost Mistress alone. Oh, I hope Shizun's okay. Poor Shizun, poor Chuaning, our poor little Meow Meow. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's reading. I hope everything ends well in the next read along and that Chuaning heals very soon. His poor shoulder, she stabbed him all the way to the bone. That must really, really hurt. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!